Hi there, this is Mark Richmond from Skeleton Key, and I'd like to take you on a little tour of Visit Tracker. We built Visit Tracker as an application that helps you track people who come to your location or event and ask them some simple questions in case you need to contact them later. An obvious use for this would be contact tracing during COVID-19, but we built it in a way that's easy to use and could potentially be useful well beyond COVID-19. For example, if you wanted to track attendees to a particular event, either for personal or for business, ask them a bunch of questions and capture that information for use after the fact. Let's take you on a tour. The first place I want to go to is where we manage the settings. You can configure the questions that you want. You'll see that right in this case, I have 3, and I can change the order of those questions. I can even add new questions. And as long as they're yes, no questions, they're eligible. I also have the ability to manage some settings, including whether or not I want to collect temperature data and what unit I'd like to capture it in. Let's go and perform a simple check-in. You'll notice that I don't have to provide first name and last name, really just whatever I want to, because what it's going to do is search and see if this person has already been to my location. Now, since this is a brand new copy of Visit Tracker, there's nobody in here, so I'm going to add a new person. All we require is something in the first name and the last name field. So it's up to you whether you want to use full last names or just use initials. And it's also up to you whether you want to use an email or a phone for contact information or none of the above. In this case, I'll go ahead and I'll use my email address. Once you've provided information about the contact, you can then answer the questions. We realized after surveying some clients that some folks are looking for all yeses, and some people are looking for all nos, and sometimes they want to not answer a particular question a particular way. Visit Tracker doesn't care. It's going to let you answer the questions any way you want for your organization or your event, and it's not going to prompt you to allow or disallow someone to come into your place of business or attend a particular soccer practice or event that you're holding. It's really just going to capture the information. Whenever possible, we do provide the appropriate type of keypad for entering information. And then, of course, if you don't answer all the questions, you're going to get a warning in case that was an accident and not on purpose. Now, the difference between a walk-in and a scheduled appointment is pretty simple. It just means that you've entered the information ahead of time and you've pegged it to a particular date and maybe even a particular time. This can be very useful if you want to enter in a roster of people you expect to attend an event or your business in advance of their showing up, so you don't have to spend a lot of time putting their personal information in when they arrive. Examples might include scheduled appointments at your business if you have sort of a regular process of having people come at a particular date and time, or maybe everyone who's coming to soccer practice next Thursday where you pretty much know well in advance what the roster is. So let's go ahead and do a scheduled appointment. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and use my name again, but I'm just going to put in part of it. In fact, I'll just put in a couple letters and let it search. And it did find that entry. So I'm going to pick my name. I'm going to have the option here if I want to edit contact information, maybe add the phone number. And I can also pick a date, either today by default or someday in the future. You'll notice that time is not required for scheduled appointments, but if that's useful, you can use that. And then when we display the scheduled appointments later, they will schedule, not in alphabetical order, they'll actually schedule in time order as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm not going to be in until, let's say, 12:30. Now I'm going to make another appointment, and I'm going to make this one for, let's see, I'll make up a person, Jane. And Jane's not in the system, so I'm going to add her for the first time. I'm just going to give a last initial for Jane. And in her case, I'm going to use a made up phone number, or at least a phone number I think that is made up. And I'm going to put Jane as showing in at, let's say she's going to be here at 9:45. Okay. So fast forward, let's say I've scheduled these for the future. In this case, I scheduled them for today. I'm going to go ahead and hit view appointments. And it's going to display those folks who are scheduled for today with whatever information I provided about them at the time. You'll notice I never used my phone number. And it's also going to sort them automatically by the time that they're supposed to show up. I can override that sort if I want to and just sort them by first name or sort them by last name or sort them by time. But it looks like in this case, the examples I chose, they kind of all sort the same way. I can also pick a different day if for some reason I wanted to look ahead or behind. And I can also use these simple navigation tools to move to different days or even jump to today. Once I do have the right day and the right people, I just have to tap on them. I have the option to edit that scheduled appointment and put it on a different day or delete it altogether, or to check them in. So you can see if I've got a roster of people and I just go through, I can just keep tapping names one after the other and checking them in. And along the way, I'm given ample opportunity to improve their contact information in case perhaps I didn't have it handy at the time that I filled in the roster. Again, back to that example of the kids on the soccer team. If I knew the roster of the kids and I put in all their names, but I didn't have contact information for their families to let them know if there was some reason to follow up with them later, I could get that information when they showed up with their parents and put in phone numbers, home phone numbers, cell numbers, whatever was appropriate, so that I could get most of the data entry done up front, but then do the rest later. Another nice feature about Visit Tracker is that you can modify the questions at any time. So for example, let's say I want to get rid of this, do you like the color blue question? And I want to change the order of the questions to put the shortness of breath question at the end. Let's say in addition, I also no longer want to collect temperature data. This won't have any effect on my previous check-in data or the previous responses I had. So if I go now and I have another new walk-in, let's say Jane comes back. And I say, oh, I'm going to give Jane her email now. There's no way that the software can fix every typo. You notice I have a different set of questions and I no longer am asking for temperature data. When I go to later export this data, which really you'll notice there's no way to get to the data directly other than during the check-in process. This would be if there was a reason to export the data. Now, maybe this is the kind of thing you want to do where you're having, I don't know, a neighborhood meeting and you're capturing information when people show up and you're going to export that to create a contact list. That's a great use. Or maybe you have people attending a business event and you're asking them questions about their preferences or their interests, and you have a bunch of yes/no questions that collect that data. You might want to use that for follow-up. But in this case, maybe I have a COVID-19 exposure or presumed exposure, and I want to contact everybody to let them know. I go to export data, I choose the date range, I hit export, and the data comes out. Now you'll see here as I scroll over that the questions, there's no temperature data for some, that's the first question that shows up. You'll notice that there's different question positions as the list of questions changed. So we built this to basically extend to as many questions as it needs to, and also to position each question and answer pair as a unique set so that you can really change the order and sequence and number of questions at any time. If you ever decide you need to reset Visit Tracker and get rid of the data that you have, just hit the reset button and it'll delete everything. But it's not going to delete your questions or your settings. So you can use this application over and over for different events, asking the same questions to a different group of people. That's everything we have to say about Visit Tracker. We hope you enjoy it and find it useful. It does work on FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Go, and FileMaker WebDirect, so you can use it either standalone or in a multi-user setup, and we deliver it completely open and available to you to modify as you see fit. Thanks a lot.